Well, good morning, or afternoon, as it were, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're obviously going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, taking a break from illogical nonsense of Dr. Matthew Israel to get into the bill that is currently on the New York State floor at the moment. But before we do, the usual disclaimers and a rant. So, it kind of had me a little think this morning because why do I get so fired up when it comes to things like stands, cancel culture in general, the insanity that is the Marilyn Manson case? It's really simple. I hate illogical nonsense. There's something about illogical nonsense, and trigger warning, we curse on this channel, and just out and out made up bullshit that, for lack of a better word, and God, I hate this word with my whole soul, but for lack of a better term, triggers something in me. It really does. It bothers me, the level of irrationality, the lack of logic, just the complete lack of critical thinking skills that our society has somehow managed to adopt over the last few years. I can't handle it. I can't deal with individuals who refuse to look at hard evidence, who willfully choose to not accept evidence and would rather choose their own narrative over facts, who will literally, willfully, like a child, plug their fingers in their ears and hum in order to avoid the cold, hard facts of reality. It makes me nuts. Really makes me nuts. It almost seems to me like a drug to these folks to go out and just burn down some stranger's life over allegations before any facts or evidence comes to the table. I kind of harped on it on yesterday's video a little bit. This idea that the people who are pushing this, particularly those who like to write in their bios, "We are the witches they didn't burn," cannot see that they have become the lynch mob that strung up and burnt the witches. Maybe it's an autistic thing. This willfully, blindly following. God, I hate saying this word now. Thank you, Amber Heard, for fucking ruining a word called herd. This willful, mindless obedience to the narrative. This loyalty to the narrative. Even when the narrative makes no sense. Because I've never been able to do that myself. I cannot understand the mentality. I can't understand willfully ignoring evidence, willfully lying and making up crap that the person even doing the accusing didn't ever say. This binding and twisting and just absolute exhausting mental gymnastics to defend someone who's been proved to be a liar. The complete, absolute willingness to burn down a stranger's life before any evidence or facts have even come out. And I'm not just talking about the court cases, folks. I'm talking political parties here. Believing one way or another blindly is not going to fix anything. In fact, that's how we got here, folks. Because following party line as opposed to logic, facts, and operating off of common sense, operating off of independent critical thought, weighing candidates on their merits, not what narrative they push. It's becoming the way of the dodo, and I'm starting to feel like that I am almost an endangered species at this point. Because anybody who dares to have an independent thought becomes the next victim of cancel culture. It bothers me. I can't help but speak out and call it out when I see it. That makes me the enemy. Fine, I've been the enemy according to the rest of neurotypical society in the world since I was literally first drew breath outside of my mom's womb. I am well accustomed to being the enemy. Having been the enemy for almost middle age, folks. Got 2 years, a little less than 2 years, actually. I can't wrap my brain around this world at the moment. I can't. Believe me, I've tried. I'm interested in psychology, but trying to wrap my brain around the mentality that's prevalent right now, where narrative from one side or the other is more important than facts and evidence, where narrative is more important than logic and common sense, where independent thinkers for so much as saying, just wait until the facts come out, are somehow public enemy number one by both sides. This is why I get fired up, folks. I compare it to someone like Rumi Paul or his twin sister Callista, the schizotypals. I compare it. See, they see these things and they don't care. They're going to play the margins. Someone like me, however, cannot help but see this nonsense and call it out. It's almost beyond my capacity to be able to control myself when it comes to it. I have to call out the stupid. It's like some kind of need in me I can't understand, but I have to call out the stupid. I have to call out the illogical nonsense. I have to try to reach out to these people and maybe spark one little spark maybe of sanity. It's probably a losing battle. Just kind of an interesting look into my own internal psychology here. I can't handle nonsense. I can't handle bullshit. I can't handle illogical. I just can't. I can't. I've never been able to. Literally never been able to. And it's basically impossible for me to keep my mouth shut about it. All right. Rant over. I'm sorry. But like I said, there's not many places I can blow off steam and let these thoughts go. Y'all are kind of my therapy. I appreciate you tolerating me. All 6 of you. All right, disclosures, and they've been edited because thankfully we're not reading the Dr. Matthew Israel word salad surprise today. In the description box, folks, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by Neuroclastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they have threatened Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, Neuroclastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is Neuroclastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC sees through with their threat. Also included in there is the link to the Ozarks First article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school, the situation. This is a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called trouble male teens that has impending, folks, over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually, do his job. And you got a governor who lost the last of his marbles a long time ago. So please, folks, get the few last sane people in this state the hell out of here. Read that article. Share it on all your social media. Also included in there all the pertinent links to the Stop the Shouts campaign, including what you're seeing here, which is a link to the New York State Senate bill on the floor right now that we're going to be going over that has been adopted, the name called Andre's Law. Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Maseba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory Change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use those headphones, all right? All right, folks, this channel, trigger warning, is labeled not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion. We speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised. All right. Okay, so we're going to be getting into this bill on the Senate floor, but let me first give you some context. Where this is coming from is from the joint efforts of the Autism Self-Advocacy Network, Cheryl McCollins, ADAPT, Andre McCollins, and many senators from New York State. This is a bill basically to work towards making sure not a single New York student in the special education program will ever get sent to the hellhole that is the JRC again. Wanted to go through it with you, so again, if you want to follow along, links in the description box, all right? It said, bill to end electroshock announced by Jabari Brisport, May 4th, 2022. As you can see, he's a New York senator. Remember these people, folks. These are the people who have our back. So this is kind of more of a news release, I see. We'll get to the bill probably in the next other videos. Excuse me. Deemed tortured by the UN, New York sends disabled children to centers that use electric shock. S8935 aims to stop that. Albany, New York. On Wednesday, May the 24th, Senator Jabari Brisport and A.M. Harvey Epstein stood with child and disability rights advocates to announce new legislation targeting facilities that practice electroshock treatments on disabled children. The bill, Andre's Law, is named in honor of Andre McCollins, a survivor of electroshock and other forms of aversive conditioning, the practice of repeatedly and intentionally inducing pain or discomfort in an attempt to alter a person's behavior, or as we call it in reality, corporal punishment. Andre was sent to an out-of-state DOE-approved facility where he was subjected to aversive conditioning and ultimately hospitalized after being tied to a board and electroshocked 31 times over 7 hours. New York State continues to send children to this same facility, the Judge Rotenberg Center. In 2005, New York prohibited aversive conditioning within the borders of New York. However, a loophole in the law has resulted in New York spending more than $100 million over the past decade sending disabled children to out-of-state facilities that use electroshock and other forms of aversive conditioning. Remember, folks, follow the money. Always follow the money. The new bill will end this practice and would be a multi-million-dollar threat to the controversial Judge Rotenberg Center, in particular, which spent over $100,000 on political lobbying last year alone. See, this is how we break them, folks. This is how we break them. Can't be political pressure alone. We need to bankrupt these people. Bankrupt them to the point that they do not have the funds to operate. The bill comes in wake of a controversial ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit that prevented the FDA from banning the use of electric shock as aversive conditioning. No facility that thinks it's acceptable to electroshock children can be trusted with their care. Our nation has found excuses for far too long to lock away disabled children and subject them to inhumane practices. Preach! Quit torturing us in the name of medicine. And quit expecting us to accept it and be quiet, because it's never going to happen. The legacy of Willowbrook and other forced lobotomies lives on in the electroshock, and New York must stop funding facilities that engage in its use, said Senator Brisport, chair of the Senate's Children and Families Committee. Medical professionals, federal agencies, international human rights groups, and dozens of states oppose this use of electric shock procedures, which cause physical harm and trauma to its victims. While New York has outlawed the use of electric shock treatment as a major loophole exists wherein people with disabilities are sent by New York state agencies to the last remaining institution in a country that uses their cruel and harmful procedures. I am proud to be standing with Senator Brisport in that strong coalition to end the victimization and harm to New Yorkers with disabilities, said Assemblymember Harvey Epstein. Cheryl McCollins, mother of Andre McCollins, spoke at the press conference and said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Thank you! Quotes from key disability advocates on the bill. In a statement of support, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network worked. For decades, disabled advocates have fought to end the torture of the Judge Rotenberg Center. The Andre McCollins bill, which will stop New Yorkers from being sent to the JRC, is a critical step towards closing this dangerous and abusive institution for good. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network is proud to support this important legislation. See, folks, the gloves are off. We have given the JRC chance after chance after chance to stop their inhumane treatments. They have failed at every turn of the corner, so gloves are off. We want it closed down. We want it a footnote in history, and we're not playing games this time. We've had enough. But moving on. To all the residents of JRC, I say I see you. Your community of disabled people sees you. You matter. Your lives mean more than what you have been led to believe when you are tortured and shocked and treated as less than human. You are a person worthy of all the best that life has to offer, and you have a community that will continue to fight for your freedom and from the torture you are currently forced to endure, said Sharon Den Vanport, Executive Director of Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, AWN. For too long, our government and other public and private institutions have subjugated disabled people, not respecting our humanity or our bodily autonomy. Preach it, said Tony Alexander, Director of Policy and Advocacy for Autistic People of Color Fund. Institutions that use abusive behavior modification techniques to punish disabled people for their mannerisms or in response to disabled mental health crises have no place in our society. It is not lost on us that these harmful techniques are often used disproportionately on Black or brown disabled people in particular. I've made that point several times, making the link between disability justice and racial justice all the more evident. We commend Senator Brisport and all those who have worked tirelessly with the New York State Assembly and Senate on disability justice issues. Years ago, New York State banned the use of electric shock on animals. Yet today, children and young adults with disabilities are subjected to what the UN defines as torture and the procedures which the FDA has banned. We applaud Senator Bridgeport, Assemblymember Epstein, the co-sponsors, and all the advocates assembled here, many who have fought this battle for years. We hold dear our memory and respect for the late Harriet Hines for her fierce advocacy for those bills, said Mike Schwinzerberg, president of the 504 Democratic Club. We appeal to all legislators to pass these bills swiftly so that young people with disabilities are no longer victims of this abuse. The National Action Network is against conversion therapy. The NAN Disabilities Committee and other units of organization continuously work to end all forms of sanctuary abuse and advocate for civil rights for every single being. Children and populations living with disabilities are exceptionally included in our activism for health equity, said Chaplain Naomi Jones, NAN Disabilities Committee Chairman and National Crisis Steering Committee Liaison. This bill was brought to the office of Senator Brisport by Chaplain Harriet Hines, who tragically passed away 2 weeks ago. In a letter for justice to the governor, she wrote, "The safety of the special needs population is in your hands. All it takes is the stroke of your pen to sign an executive order for the return of our New York State children. It is hope of all the kids and children with special needs that you take this issue front and center. Many years have lapsed with the torture that still continues. May she rest in peace." So this is the bill on the floor on the New York Senate. As you can see, it's almost been a year since it's been on there. I know those of us who live out of state can't do much, but we should support and back those who do live there and do have the power, folks. This is a hard fight. It's a long fight. It's a dirty fight. This is a rabbit hole so dark, so long. It's almost like there's no bottom. Help us fight this. Back these senators. Spread the word out so that people from New York can see it. We're going to close out on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.